Chapter 6 in Sunny Spain, year 1882-1885. After finishing the fourth year of the medical course in the University of Santo Tomas, Jose Rizal, being disgusted with the antiquated method of instruction in this Dominican-owned university and the medical prejudice of Dominican professors against Filipino students, decided to complete his studies in Spain. Rizal left Manila on May 3, 1882. He went to Spain where he completed his university studies, improved his knowledge of language and arts, and further developed his God-given talents for greater service to the fatherland. At that time, the government in Spain was a constitutional monarchy under which the Spanish people enjoyed individual liberties, including freedom of speech and freedom of the press. To Rizal de Light, he saw Spanish politicians and writers openly criticizing the government policies without fear of persecution. He joined the propaganda movement, working with other Filipino patriots in seeking reforms to remedy the evils of Spanish rule in the Philippines. Rizal's departure for Spain was kept secret in order to avoid detection by the colonial officials and the friars. Even his own parents did not know that he was leaving. On Uncle Antonio Rivera Paciano and his sisters and some close friends knew. Paciano gave him 700 pesos. Saturnina later gave him a diamond ring which helped him very much during his days of poverty in Europe. To maintain his studies and sojourn abroad, he needed a monthly allowance of 35 pesos, and this amount Paciano promised to send regularly through Uncle Antonio. Rizal used a passport obtained by a cousin named Jose Mercado to outwit the Spanish authorities. He went to Calamba, ostensibly to attend the town fiesta. A cryptic telegram by Manuel T. Hidalgo from Manila arrived announcing that the Spanish steamer Salvadora was scheduled to sail for Singapore. Early in the morning of May 1, 1882, he left Calamba by Caromata, reaching Manila after 10 hours of travel. He had time to book passage on the Salvadora to write farewell letters to his family and friends and bid goodbye to his friends. The Jesuit fathers whom he visited to say adios gave him letters of recommendation to the members of their society in Barcelona. He had also a truthful farewell meeting with his beloved Leonor. This proved to be their last meeting, for they were destined never to meet again. During the voyage, Rizal keenly observed the persons and things around him and compared them with those in the Philippines. He was the only Filipino on board. His fellow passengers were foreign travelers and some Spanish employees and merchants returning to Spain. Almost all of those men, he wrote, speaking of the Spanish passengers, spoke ill of the country to which they had gone for pecuniary reason. After 5 days of sailing, the Salvadora reached the English colony of Singapore. For the first time, Rizal saw Singapore and was impressed by its progress and beautiful sights. He particularly admired the confidence which the natives of Singapore seems to have in the government, surely a great contrast to the fear of the rule shown by the Filipinos. Rizal stayed at Hotel de Paz during the 2 days of his stopover in Singapore. He spent most of this time visiting the historic places, botanical garden, temples, and art galleries, and writing his diary and letters. In Singapore, Rizal boarded the Gemna, a French steamer which was sailing to Europe. It was larger and cleaner than the Salvadora. He tried to speak French with some passengers, but to his surprise, the bookish French which he learned in the Ateneo could not be understood. He had to speak in with a mixture of Latin and Spanish words, aided with much gesticulations and frequent sketching on paper, to make himself understood. By persistently speaking French daily, he was able to improve his French. June 2, he arrived at the city of Suez, the Red Sea terminal of the Suez Canal. The beautiful moonlight of this picturesque city reminded him of his family and Calamba. It took the Gemna 5 days to traverse the Suez Canal. Rizal enjoyed the passage through his canal. He was thrilled because it was his first sight of the historic waterway, which was constructed by the famous French name. He was thrilled because it was his first sight of the historic waterway, which was constructed by the famous Frenchman named Ferdinand de Lesseps on November 17, 1869. At Port Said, the Mediterranean terminal of the Canal Rizal landed to see the interesting spots. He heard the multiracial resident speaking a babel of tongue, Arabic, Egyptians, Greek, French, Italian, Spanish. He saw the numerous cafes, the churches, mosques, and temples, and the colorful custom of both East and West. Naples and Marseilles, from Port Said, the Gemna proceeded on its way to Europe. On June 11, Rizal reached Naples. This Italian city pleased him because of its business activity, its lively people, and its patriotic beauty. On the night of June 12, the steamer docked at the French harbor of Marseilles. Rizal, after bidding farewell to his fellow passengers, disembarked. He visited the famous places of the city, particularly where Dante's hero of the Count of Monte Cristo was impressed. He had enjoyed reading this novel of Alexander Dumas when he was a student of the Ateneo. He stayed 3 days in Marseilles, enjoying every day of his sojourn. Rizal's first impression of Barcelona, greatest city of Catalonia and Spain's second largest city, was unfavorable. He thought that it was ugly, with dirty little inns and inhospitable residents, because he happened to stay, upon his arrival, at a dingy inn situated on an impressive narrow street in the town's most ugly side, and the staff and guests it said in were indifferent to him. Later, he changed his bad impression and came to like the city. He found it to be really a great city with atmosphere of freedom and liberalism, and its people were open-hearted, hospitable, and courageous. He enjoyed promenading along Las Ramblas, famous street in Barcelona. The Filipinos in Barcelona, some of whom were his schoolmates in the Ateneo, welcomed Rizal. They gave him a party at their favorite cafe in Plaza de Catalunya. After the customary exchange of toasts, they told their guests of the attractions of Barcelona and the custom of the Spanish people. In turn, he gave them the latest news and gossips in the Philippines. Rizal moves to Madrid. While sojourning in Barcelona, Rizal received sad news about the cholera that was ravaging Manila and the provinces. Many people had died and more were dying daily. According to Pasiano's letter, dated September 15, 1882, the Calamba folks were having afternoon novelas to San Roque and nocturnal procession and prayer so that God may stop the dreadful epidemic which the Spanish health authorities were impotent to check. Another sad news from the Philippines was the chat letter of Chengoy, recounting the unhappiness of Leono Rivera, who was getting thinner because of the absence of a loved one. In one of his letters dated May 26, 1882, Pasiano advised his younger brother to finish the medical courses in Madrid. Evidently, heeding his advice, Rizal left Barcelona in the fall of 1882 and established himself in Madrid, the capital of Spain.
On November 3, 1882, Rizal enrolled in the Universidad Central de Madrid in two courses, medicine and philosophy and letters. Aside from his heavy studies in the university, he studied painting, sculpture in the Academy of San Carlos, took lessons in French, German, and English under a private instructor, and assiduously practiced fencing and shooting in the Hall of Arms of Sans Y Carbonell. His thirst of knowledge was unlimited. He attended operas and concerts to improve his knowledge of music. He visited the art galleries and museums and read books on all subjects under the sun, including military engineering. In order to broaden his cultural background, Rizal led a Spartan life in Madrid. He knew that he came to Spain to study and to prepare himself for service to his fatherland. Accordingly, he strictly budgeted his money and time. He lived frugally, like an Ilocano, spending his money on food, clothing, and books, never a peseta for wine or woman. His only extravagance was the Spanish lottery. At every draw, he visited 3 pesetas on a lottery tickets. He also never wasted time. His spare hours were devoted to attending lectures, operas, and religious fiestas, reading at home or at the libraries, conversing with friends at the paternal living quarters on Calle Seco and at Cafe de Palayo, favorite rendezvous of the Filipino student. Having coffee at a little cafe near La Puerta del Sol called Watch the Cavalcade of Life in the Spanish metropolis, and visiting the house of Pablo Ortega y Rey, a liberal-minded Spaniard and civil governor of Manila during General Carlos de la Torre's administration. Rizal used to visit the home of Don Pablo Ortega y Rey every Saturday evening. He and other Filipino students play parlor games with his 2 daughters, Pilar and Consuelo. It was Consuelo who awakened the sparks of love in Rizal's heart. Consuelo loved Rizal. She wrote in diary that she knew Rizal loved her, though he did not say it. Rizal gave her flower, which is affectionately cherished. Rizal really almost lost his heart to the pretty Madrilena, sure that he was engaged to Leonor Rivera, but she was far away, and he was lonely in Madrid. On August 22, 1883, he wrote a lovely poem entitled Allah, Señorita. With great willpower, Rizal did not allow the romance to go on for 2 reasons. He was still engaged to Leonor Rivera, and he would not want to be unfaithful to her. And Eduardo de Lete, his friend, was deeply in love with Consuelo, and he did not want to break their friendship just for a wish of a girl. Thus in the summer, in 1883, he made a quick trip to Paris in order to forget Consuelo. In 1882, shortly after his arrival in Madrid, Rizal joined the Hispano-Philippine Circle, a society of Spaniards and Filipinos. Upon the request of the members of the society, he wrote a poem entitled Me Piden Versos. They asked me for verses. In Spain, Rizal came in contact with the liberal and republican elements, most of whom were Masons. Being young and lonely in a foreign country, he was easily impressed by the way the prominent Spanish Masons lonely and freely attacked the government and the church. He knew that in the Philippines, these Spanish Masons would either be executed or jailed if they would openly assail the government policy. In due time, his friends who were Masons persuaded him to join Masonry. In 1883, he joined the Masonic Lodge, Acacia, in Madrid. His Masonic name was Di Masalang. 2 reasons may be presented why he became a Mason. The bad friars in the Philippines, by their abuses unworthy of their presently habit or calling, result to deprivation to Masonry, and he needed the help of the Masons to fight the bad friars in the Philippines. For Masonry to Rizal was a shield to use in his fight against the evil force of tyranny. Rizal became a Master Mason in Lodge Solidaridad on November 15, 1890. Later, on February 15, 1892, he became a Master Mason of Le Grand Orient, France, in Paris. Since joining Masonry, Rizal naturally regularly to the church, and he wandered far from the fold of the faith of his father. However, since the Catholic religion was latent deeply in his soul, he continued to have faith in the province. He was awarded the degree of Licenciato in Medicine by the Universidad Central de Madrid on June 12, 1884. The next academic year, 1884-85, he studied and passed all subjects leading to the degree of Doctor of Medicine. However, he was not awarded his doctor diploma because he did not present his thesis nor paid the corresponding fees. Rizal also finished his studies in philosophy and letters and was also awarded the degree on June 1985, his 24th birthday.